What's up, everybody? Alex here, and welcome to the first SUDday Funday, the vinyl community weekend wrap. Hey, cheers. Okay, so I posted a video this past Friday that I sort of said was the first in an episode of like a weekly Friday wrap-up sort of thing. And I just had a ton of fun doing it, and people were really supportive. I want to be clear that when I post videos, it has nothing to do with like, trying to catch like the YouTube algorithm or, going viral or anything like that. But more or less, the whole reason I wanted to do this thing was to take my hobby of listening to music and share it with people. So I realized I had so much fun just, talking about nothing basically during that video, and that I listened to so much music between, Friday afternoon of recording that video and basically Sunday afternoon where we are now, that I want to do another video on Sundays. So we're going to call it SUDday Funday because it's stupid and I'm stupid and, people love that. And it's kind of the same thing in theory, but, what I've been listening to this weekend. So if you're a fan of just, people showing records and talking about records, this is for you. Because that's really all this is. So yeah, nothing magical. I'm showing records. I'm showing what I've been listening to over the weekend and, what's coming up and just other general stuff. And of course, drinking a cheap, healthy 2.5 carb Michelob Ultra, doctor's orders. So, my listening on Saturday night, on basically weekend evening. So Saturday night and, Friday night and Saturday night, I try to listen to a live record, at least a double, right? Like I don't know what it is. It's like this idea of like, it's the weekend. It's like a celebration. I feel like I want to go to a show. And so my thing is I will pick a live record every Friday and Saturday that I want to listen to in its entirety. And of course I'll listen to other stuff too, but like I'll be pretty dedicated of like, ooh, it's a Friday, it's a Saturday, I'm going to listen to a live record. So the first thing I listened to on Friday night after recording the Friday video I did, came from this great box set that is really cheap now. And I remember buying this for really cheap too, but I think I saw some of these on Discogs for less than $25 or something like that. And that is the, sort of semi-recent, I guess would this be like the 40th anniversary of Marillion's Fugazi. This is Marillion's second album, but they released sort of this box set a couple of years ago to celebrate the anniversary of it. And so the first disc is just a remaster of the album. I have an original, but there's 3 more LPs that are from a live show in Montreal in 1984. And so I wanted to dive in on that. I have not listened to that in a while. Again, 3 LPs of all stuff from the first 2 LPs, which is pretty, I guess, underrepresented nowadays in Marillion context. But man, just such great stuff on here. Jigsaw, I've talked about Jigsaw before. That's one of my favorite Marillion tracks and my favorite off of this record, Fugazi. But also Forgotten Sons, Garden Party, Market Square Heroes. I mean, Fish's energy and his whole personality, it was just awesome, right? I mean, it was like Gabriel 2.0 with the face paint and the makeup and all that type of stuff. And man, I would have given anything to be able to see this band. So Steve, if you're out there watching, I'll know you'll probably dig this. And I don't know if we've talked about if you saw Marillion back in the day with Fish, but what that experience might have been like. But yeah, a great box set, 4 LPs. And again, I think these are like, they're so cheap and they're so discounted now because people don't buy them because who cares about neo-prog except this fat ass. But there's just some great stuff on there. So that was my Saturday night show and it was great. And then a lot of times with my listening, I will do a ton of just sort of like Discogs random stuff, right? If I don't have like a dedicated thing, I'll do like the Discogs shuffle and it'll give me something random to listen to and I'll dive into it. And it's interesting because sometimes that leads me to, listen to records I haven't in a while and then sort of also analyze, sometimes there's these conversations that are happening in the community about certain records. And I'm like, you know what? Are those real or are those not? And that's true with this one. Okay. I would love your comments on this because it's true. I don't know if this will get blocked or whatever, but I'm going to show real quick Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, obviously, their fifth record. This came out after Led Zeppelin 4. Where does this fall for people? I mean, I've seen some people talk about how much they love this record, but then there's, some of these tracks on here like Jamaica and all these different things that they don't like. The crunge is interesting because it's kind of almost like a novelty song. But if you talk to like progressive rock fans and like drummers and stuff like that, they will say the crunge of like, oh no, that is a John Bonham tour de force, all these different things. Obviously, you had a couple of the hits. You had No Quarter, which is great, but it was interesting. As I was listening to this, the whole time I was thinking, I feel like this record's gotten a lot of hate over the years. Maybe not as much as In Through the Outdoor or even Presence, but after those two, I don't know. I'm very, very curious where Houses falls for you all. I don't know. I wish I had a better thing to say about it. Obviously, I still do like it, but it is an interesting record. And almost like not to say they're a burnout record, but it's that tweener, obviously, between those four absolute masterpieces. And then, Physical Graffiti, which was essentially a comp of all the masterpieces that came before it. So, I don't know. Thoughts on Houses of the Holy. Now, here's an interesting one, completely switching gears. This is an artist that will always have a soft spot in my heart. It was the first concert I ever saw. He was touring with Def Leppard at the time. This was back in 2005. And I like this artist a lot, and I love this record, and we're going to show it because I freaking love it. And that is Reckless from Bryan Adams, 1984. I mean, talk about a hit machine off this record, right? I mean, it opens with One Night Love Affair, which I've always loved that song. It was a single, but was not overplayed. But I believe he opened the concert with One Night Love Affair, and therefore it's always something that is great for me. Run to You, hear that all the time. Heaven, I know it's overplayed. I know it's schmaltzy and sugary and bullshit, but I love Heaven. And I remember seeing him live and just everybody singing that song, including me. Somebody, great song. I need somebody. Hey, what about you? Obviously, Summer of 69 has nothing to do with the year. You all know that. Everywhere I Go, The Kids Want to Rock. That was another banger there. It's Only Love, which was with Tina Turner. And then close out with a couple tracks. Look, I still love Bryan Adams. I think he's freaking great. He sounds great, by the way, still to this day. But yeah, Reckless. I mean, what a masterpiece. This sold a gazillion records and just full of singles and hits and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is kind of a fun one. This was an interesting listen. I'm curious for the fans out there. This was like a dollar buy that I got last week. It's just best to show it. So Is It So? From Cat Stevens. This was 1977, I believe, and was sort of the quote-unquote comeback after he did Numbers, which was like this grandiose like concept album or something. And then this comes in 77. He's like influencing some like electronic stuff in here, which is interesting. Old Schoolyard, remember the days of the Old Schoolyard? That was the big hit off of here. There's some great stuff on here as well, but the fascinating thing about this is if you've never heard and if you're thinking, okay, Cat Stevens, I think him with an acoustic guitar, right? Yes, and play the song Was Dog a Donut? Look it up, play the song, stream the song. You'll be like, what am I listening to? Who is this? Was Dog a Donut? I can't even explain it. So I am a big Cat Stevens fan. This is obviously after his prime of all the, Catch Bullet 4 and all that kind of stuff. But fascinating record for sure. I did enjoy it. Somehow it works. You wouldn't think it would, but it totally does. And so there it is for me. This was my latest mail-in from Vinyl Me Please. I am a Vinyl Me Please member. And this one I did not get at first, and then I saw some reviews on it, and I did the swap and all those different things, and I'm so glad I did because I spun this and absolutely loved it. And that is their reissue of Black Moses from Isaac Hayes. This was Isaac Hayes' fifth record that came out in 1971. It's so funny. I mean, some people might know the whole soul thing is very new to me still. I mean, it really only came about in the last several months, which in part was obviously falling down like the coal mine record rabbit hole, but then going back in time and discovering some of these soul artists. And what I learned is with people like Isaac Hayes and Curtis Mayfield and so many others, that there's this thing out there called progressive soul. It's prog soul, black prog, some people call it. And it's this idea of like, yeah, it's soulful music. Obviously, but they're long and, different interpretations. There's these long musical passages, all these changes. I absolutely freaking love this. I remember hearing Hot Buttered Soul the first time several months ago and loved it. Absolutely loved it. And so, yeah, I mean, Black Moses, double LP. There's just some great stuff on here. I think he does a great sort of rendition of Burt Bacharach's covered by the Carpenters the first time in 70, and then later by Isaac in 71 of Close to You, which is just great. So, yeah, this was awesome. All in. The reason I went with this one, by the way, I mean, you can get originals of this for, $10. But if you're a soul fan, you probably know this old school soul stuff is usually just absolutely wrecked when you find it. So I've seen it a lot in the bins, 10, 15 bucks, whatever it is, but they're typically just beat to hell. So to have a nice, clean, brand new copy, audiophile in the sense of Ryan K. Smith was in charge of the cutting or the mastering here. Yeah, I love this. So yeah, Black Moses from Isaac Hayes, amazing. Let's jump into some fusion. Okay, so if you're a fusion guy or gal, and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? This rarely gets talked about, and I think this is one of the absolute burner, ripper, smoker, smacker, tallywhacker, whatever you want to call it, and that is heavy metal bebop by the Breer Brothers. So here's the thing. This was sort of after the whole fusion thing, right? If you like a fusion of like early to mid 70s with Return to Forever and, Weather Report and obviously the stuff that Miles was doing. This came out in 1978. And obviously Michael and Randy Brecker have played with everybody in their Breer Brothers. But this record absolutely freaking rips, especially for 1978. In one sense, it sounds like 78, but in another sense, it's just squealing, ripping guitar, ripping sax, ripping trumpet. I genuinely, I say this, of like, if you are trying to bridge and you're like, I'm curious on jazz and jazz fusion. I'm curious, but I'm coming from like a hard rock, a rock and roll background. What do I do? Try to find this record. It is so cheap. I mean, this was a promo I got for $1. I mean, this is a $5 to $7 clean ass copy record, and it absolutely smokes. I'm telling you, I cannot recommend this enough. Heavy metal bebop from the Breer Brothers. It'll blow your fucking pants off. Speaking of blowing pants off here, let's jump into some fun coal mine stuff. How about K-Bay Shakedown? This is obviously a promo copy. Yeah, Coal Mine still does promos, right? They put that awesome, like, neon pink, sort of Warner Brothers style promo sticker on them, and these are also white label promos. This is Kings Left Behind. This came out in 2019, I believe. I could be totally wrong there. Sometime recently, I think 2019. This is awesome, funky instrumental soul. I believe these guys are out of Brooklyn. I gotta be honest with you, like, I saw a video of these guys doing something and I was like, oh, they all white dudes. They are all white dudes. Was not expecting that because it does not sound like all white dudes. But these guys have sort of become up there in the Coal Mine family for me as some of my favorites, up there with Black Market Brass, Ghost Funk Orchestra. I absolutely loved and hearing this again. It is funky, it is soulful, it just gets you going, all that good stuff. So perfect Saturday afternoon stuff for me. A K-Bay Shakedown. Check them out if you're into some funky soul stuff. You'll absolutely love it. Moving into Saturday evening a little bit here. This is a band that had a kind of a stretch of 4-ish or so, 4 or 5 albums that are all just absolutely amazing. And for a long time, it took me a while to really get into this one up there with, the Jailbreaks of the world or the Johnny the Foxes, and you know where I'm going with this. And that's Bad Reputation from Thin Lizzy, 1977. Kind of an interesting story here. I mean, the hero, I think, on this record is Scott Gorham. At the time, Robo, Brian Robertson, was kind of, I think he had hurt his hand or something, getting in a bar fight. He had like nerve damage, and so he's only on a couple of tracks. But Scott's ripping on here. I found myself loving this significantly more than I had in the past. Soldier of Fortune is amazing. I believe Opium Trail's on here. That's always been an absolute killer. Dancing in the Moonlight. That was the thing with like Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy, right? It's like they were known for sort of these dual twin lead guitar stuff that was so great and amazing hard rock. but some of these like soulful melody sing-along songs were so good too. Dancing in the Moonlight's one of those. And the fun fact on Dancing in the Moonlight has guest saxophone appearance by, is it John Hellowell, who was the saxophone player in Supertramp. Also doing a lot in 1977. So there you go. And my Saturday live album of the night, what was it, you ask? Well, I will tell you. I went with Roger Waters and The Wall live in Berlin, 1990. I forgot about this record. It came out for Record Store Day several years ago. And obviously coincided, I think it was like 6 or 8 months later after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's Roger Waters, not Pink Floyd, but Roger Waters teaming up with a absolute gang of musicians and people from across, just everywhere. Everybody is on this record. Sinead O'Connor is on here, sort of. I'll talk about that in a second. Joni Mitchell's on here. The band is on here. Paul Carrack is on here. Scorpions are on here. Van Morrison is on here. Damn near everybody is on this record. And it's just, it's very, Bryan Adams is on this record. It's very much like the Last Waltz sort of thing, but led by Roger. Now, what's funny is I believe Sinead O'Connor and the band were recording Mother, but she refused to go on during the actual performance itself. And so the audio that you hear on the vinyl and the CD is actually from rehearsals, I believe. But yeah, what a great record, and just cool to hear all these folks do those types of songs. And as Ronald McDonald Reagan once said, Mr. Waters, tear down this wall. Y'all know that Roger Waters was responsible for the fall of the wall, right? Sunday morning jazz, right? I told you I do jazz in the mornings. For me, in the Sunday morning, which I guess is this morning, was this great reissue from Blue Note, a tone poet that they put out last year of Blue Train. Blue Train is the only John Coltrane record that was released, him as a leader, on Blue Note, 1958. Lee Morgan's on here, Curtis Fuller, Paul Chambers, Kenny Drew, Philly Joe Jones. Obviously an amazing staple in jazz. Original as this cost $1 gazillion. This was a cool tone poet they did. You see the inside there. Awesome stuff. This is a great tone poet they did because they did two versions. They did a mono version, which was the standard album, and then the stereo, which was a double LP, which included the original album in stereo, and then a second LP of different takes from the record itself. So, absolutely loved it. Moved into a little bit of prog. These guys might have been just a couple years late. They kind of became known as like ELP Light. I think they're great. This is my favorite album from them, and it's Illusions on a Double Dimple from, almost forgot his name, Triumvirate. Illusions on a Double Dimple, and for those out there who know, y'all got any cheese? Yeah, this is very ELP, so keyboard and organ heavy, but it's great stuff. They never really obviously blew up like the other prog bands, and I think a lot of that, yes, they sound like ELP, but also it was sounding like ELP, but 3 or 4 years later. So this record came out in 1974, and it's really the one that put them on the map, which is a little bit past the prime, but still a great prog record. Triumvirate's out of Germany for the prog fans out there. How about this one? I'm curious if Mark Morris is out there watching. Mark Morris, love his channel. I've talked about him a lot. I know he's a big Neil Young fan, and especially that sort of Ditch Trilogy area of the mid-70s. But I spun this for the first time in a long time. Neil Young, Homegrown. So this was technically just released in 2020, but these were all recorded between On the Beach and Zuma. And so apparently, this was recorded somewhere between On the Beach and Zuma, and then ultimately Tonight's the Night was what was released, and all these recordings were shelved. So, Mark, shout out to you, because I know that you're a huge fan of Neil in this sort of era of him, but, this fits right in, obviously, to that period. And, that's the stuff of these, like, archival releases that I really get into. It's not so much like the bootleg quality live albums or the outtakes, but more of like, oh, this was a whole album that was recorded that was never released. I'm totally into that. And then last, and this is actually kind of in preparation for seeing this band here in the next week or two, and that's the Guayo from ZZ Top. I just spun this. Interesting. This is typically the period that I start checking out. I just love those first 3, 4 ZZ Top records so much that by the time they get to this point, and especially Eliminator and Enforcer or whatever all those are called later, I kind of just check out on that. But man, that tone Billy Gibbons has is just wild. So I still love this record. There's a couple things on here. What closes side A is Manic Mechanic. What a bizarre song. That doesn't even make sense to be on the song or on the record. Obviously, Cheap Sunglasses was a huge hit, still a banger. And then how about we start where we sort of finished here? Side A opens with I Thank You, which was a huge song for them. I didn't realize that was actually an Isaac Hayes penned song. So there you go. That takes us up to Sunday. It is SUDday, Funday, the weekend recap, all the records I've been listening to and hanging out with. A fun week coming up, obviously. Tuesday, I'm seeing the Breer Brothers. Shout out to Sam St. John. I know you're a big fan if you're out there watching. Sometimes Sam watches my videos. Most of the time, he just leaves a dumb comment. And then ZZ Top in about 10 days or so. And so some other fun stuff happening. Look forward to probably a live stream coming next weekend for those who want to tune in and make fun of me. You are obviously all more than welcome to. So there you go. Cheers. Have a great week ahead, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, y'all.